Most animals have only one heart, but octopuses are different. They have 3 hearts. An octopus breathes by absorbing water and passing it over its gills. The gills extract oxygen from the water and transfer it into the bloodstream. Since the gills need a constant blood supply to absorb oxygen efficiently, 2 of the octopus's hearts are dedicated to pumping blood to the gills. The 3rd heart is responsible for pumping oxygen-rich blood throughout the rest of the body. Speaking of blood, when we think of blood, we usually imagine the red-colored blood found in humans. Our blood is red because it contains hemoglobin, an iron-based protein that carries oxygen. But octopuses are different here as well. Instead of hemoglobin, they have a copper-based protein called hemocyanin. Because hemocyanin contains copper rather than iron, an octopus's blood appears blue instead of red. Next comes a fact that confuses almost everyone. Bananas are berries, but strawberries are not. Sounds strange, right? According to science, a fruit is classified as a berry if it develops from a single flower with 1 ovary and has seeds embedded inside the fruit. At first glance, bananas don't seem to have seeds. But if you look closely, you'll notice tiny black dots inside the fruit. These are actually undeveloped seeds, which is one of the reasons bananas qualify as berries. Strawberries, on the other hand, are different. Even though a strawberry grows from a single flower, it develops from multiple ovaries rather than a single ovary. Because of this, it does not meet the botanical definition of a true berry. Those tiny seed-like structures you see on the outside of a strawberry aren't actually seeds. They are called achenes, and each achene is considered a separate dry fruit containing a seed inside. We all know that honey doesn't spoil easily. But do you know just how long it can last? Recently, archaeologists discovered a jar filled with honey inside an ancient Egyptian tomb. The surprising part is that the honey was around 3,000 years old, yet it was still preserved and had not spoiled. So how is that possible? Honey contains a very high amount of sugar and very little moisture. These conditions make it extremely difficult for bacteria and other microorganisms to survive and grow. Because of this, honey naturally resists spoilage and can remain edible for an incredibly long time. Scientists believe that life on land originally evolved from life that existed in the oceans. One fascinating piece of evidence that shows just how ancient marine life is comes from sharks. Sharks have been swimming in Earth's oceans for nearly 400 million years. That's an incredibly long time, long before dinosaurs ever appeared. What's even more surprising is that the trees we see around us today have not existed for as long as sharks. Scientists estimate that the first true trees appeared around 350 to 390 million years ago, meaning sharks were already living in the oceans millions of years before the first forests began to grow on land. On Earth, rain forms when water from oceans, lakes, and rivers evaporates into the atmosphere. As the water vapor rises, it cools and condenses into clouds, eventually falling back to the ground as rain. But on some distant exoplanets, the process may be far more extreme. Scientists believe that these planets are so incredibly hot that iron itself can vaporize and rise into the atmosphere, much like water vapor does on Earth. Of course, as the iron vapor moves to cooler regions of the planet, it eventually cools and condenses. And when that happens, it falls back down from the sky, not as water rain, but as molten iron rain. It sounds like something from a science fiction movie, but according to scientists, this may actually happen on some of the hottest planets in the universe. About 26,000 light-years away from Earth, near the center of our galaxy, there is a massive molecular cloud known as Sagittarius B2. What makes this cloud so fascinating is that astronomers have detected large amounts of alcohol molecules, including ethanol and methanol, within it. Hearing that might make you think there's a giant cloud of alcohol floating through space. And in a way, that's true. But here's the interesting part. These alcohol molecules are spread across an enormous region of space. They aren't concentrated like the liquid alcohol we find on Earth. If conditions were somehow right for these molecules to condense into liquid form, it could theoretically create something similar to alcohol rain. However, in reality, the environment inside Sagittarius B2 is very different from Earth's atmosphere, so it doesn't literally produce alcohol rain the way Earth produces water rain. When we think of a volcano, we usually imagine glowing streams of lava in shades of red, orange, and yellow flowing down the mountainside. But in Indonesia, there's a volcano called Kawah Ijen that produces something much more unusual. At night, it appears to release bright blue flames, creating a scene that looks almost unreal. So what's causing this mysterious blue fire? Deep within the volcano, large amounts of sulfur gases escape through cracks in the ground. These gases can reach extremely high temperatures. When the hot sulfur gases come into contact with oxygen in the air, they ignite and burn with a vivid blue color. As a result, the volcano appears to be covered in glowing blue flames, especially after sunset. When we hear the name Sahara Desert, we immediately think of endless sand dunes, scorching temperatures, and one of the hottest places on Earth. But believe it or not, the Sahara wasn't always a desert. Thousands of years ago, this vast region was covered with rivers, lakes, grasslands, and abundant vegetation. It was home to a wide variety of animals that thrived in its green landscape. In fact, scientists have found evidence of fish, crocodiles, hippos, and many other species that once lived there. Over time, changes in Earth's climate and orbital patterns gradually altered rainfall across the region. As the climate became drier, the lakes disappeared, the rivers dried up, and the lush green environment slowly transformed into the massive desert we see today. We'll explore that transformation in detail in a future video. Deep within Antarctica, there is a mysterious waterfall that flows in a striking blood-red color. At first glance, it looks as though blood is pouring out of the ice, which is why it is known as blood falls. But don't worry, it's not actually blood. Beneath Antarctica's thick ice sheets, there are pockets of ancient water trapped for millions of years. In one particular area, this water contains an unusually high concentration of iron. As the iron-rich water slowly emerges from beneath the glacier and reaches the surface, it comes into contact with oxygen in the air. This causes the iron to oxidize or rust, giving the water its distinctive dark red color. That's why even today, Blood Falls continues to release streams of red-colored water, creating one of the most unusual natural phenomena on Earth. Imagine if your head were completely transparent and people could see your brain, nerves, and everything inside. It would look pretty strange, right? Well, deep in the ocean, there is actually a fish that has something similar. It's called the barrel-eye fish, and it has a transparent, dome-shaped head. Through this clear dome, scientists can see the fish's internal eye structures, making it one of the most unusual-looking creatures in the ocean. But the barrel-eye fish isn't just strange in appearance. Its eyes are extraordinary too. Unlike most fish, its eyes can rotate to look in different directions. This helps it search for food in the dark depths of the ocean, where sunlight barely reaches. The fish can look upward to spot prey and then adjust its eyes as needed while hunting. Have you ever heard the idea of compressing Earth's entire history into just 24 hours? If we did that, humans wouldn't appear until the final 10 seconds before midnight. That's how incredibly vast the story of our planet is. For billions of years, Earth has witnessed the formation of oceans, the rise and fall of mountains, the evolution of countless species, and the extinction of entire worlds that existed long before us. Yet, in this enormous timeline, humanity's presence is only a tiny moment. When you think about it that way, Earth carries a story far greater than any one of us. So on a planet with such a long and remarkable history, does it really make sense for us to constantly fight over whether it belongs to me or to you? Have you ever wondered why there isn't a pyramid associated with Egypt's famous queen, Cleopatra? Well, that's because Cleopatra lived much later than the age of the great pyramid builders. In fact, there is a gap of nearly 2,000 years between Cleopatra's lifetime and the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. To put that into perspective, Cleopatra lived closer to the 1969 moon landing than she did to the building of the pyramids. If she had been born just a little later in history, she might have witnessed humanity's first steps on the moon. Have you ever wondered how some birds manage to travel across vast distances without taking a break? Well, certain birds have an incredible ability. They can sleep while flying. When these birds are in the air, they allow only one half of their brain to sleep at a time, while the other half remains awake and alert. The awake side continues to control navigation, maintain flight, and stay aware of the surroundings. This remarkable adaptation allows them to keep moving even while getting the rest they need. The Eiffel Tower isn't always the same height. During the summer, the iron used to build the tower heats up and expands. As the metal expands, the entire structure grows slightly taller. Because of this thermal expansion, the Eiffel Tower can become up to 15 centimeters taller than its normal height. That might not sound like much, but it's roughly the length of a standard pencil.